Welcome back to Roleplay Riot. We are covering The Hobbit. We are on part 12. Riddles in the Dark.
Not fair! Not fair, he hissed. It isn't fair, my precious, to ask us what it's got in its nasty little pocketses.
Bilbo, seeing what had happened, and having nothing better, stuck to his question. "What have I got in my pocket?" he said louder.
Sss,
Said Gollum.
it must give us 3 guesses, my precious. 3 guesses.
"Very well, guess away," said Bilbo.
Hands is,
Said Gollum. "Wrong," said Bilbo, who had luckily taken his hands out again. "Guess again." Said Gollum, more upset than ever. He thought of all the things he kept in his own pockets. Fish bones, goblin's teeth, wet shells, a bit of bat wing, a sharp stone to sharpen his fangs on, and other nasty things. He tried to think of what other people kept in their pockets.
knife,
He said at last. "Wrong," said Bilbo, who had lost his some time ago. "Last guess." Now Gollum was in much worse state than when Bilbo had asked him the egg question. He hissed and he sputtered and he rocked himself backwards and forwards and he slapped his feet on the floor and he wriggled and squirmed, but still he did not dare to waste his last guess. "Come on," said Bilbo, "I am waiting." He tried to sound bold and cheerful, but he did not feel at all sure how the game was going to end and whether Gollum guessed right or not. "Time's up," he said.
string or nothing,
Shrieked Gollum, which was not quite fair, working in 2 guesses at once. "Both wrong!" cried Bilbo, very much relieved, and he jumped at once to his feet, put his back to the nearest wall, and held out his little sword. He knew, of course, that the riddle game was sacred and of immense antiquity, and even wicked creatures were afraid to cheat when they played at it. But he felt he could not trust this slimy thing to keep a promise in a pinch. Any excuse would do for him to slide out of it. And after all, that last question had not been a genuine riddle, according to the ancient laws. But at any rate, Gollum did not attack him. He could see the sword in Bilbo's hand. He sat still, shivering and whispering. At last Bilbo could wait no longer. "Well," he said, "what about your promise? I want to go. You must show me the way."
Did we say so, precious? Show the nasty little Bagginses the way out? Yes, yes. But what has it got in its pockets? Is not string, precious, but not nothing. Oh, no. Gollum!
"Never you mind," said Bilbo. "A promise is a promise."
"Cross it is. Impatient, precious," hissed Gollum. "But it must wait. Yes, it must. We can't go up the tunnel so hasty. We must go get some things first. Yes, things to help us."
"Well, hurry up," said Bilbo, relieved to think of Gollum going away. He thought he was just making an excuse and did not mean to come back. What was Gollum talking about? What useful thing could he keep in the dark lake? But he was wrong. Gollum did mean to come back. He was angry now and hungry, and he was a miserable, wicked creature, and he already had a plan. Not far away was his island, of which Bilbo knew nothing, and there in his hiding place he kept a few wretched oddments and one very beautiful thing, a very beautiful, very wonderful thing. He had a ring, a golden ring, a precious ring.
My birthday present, he whispered to himself, as he had often done in the endless dark days. That's what we want now. Yes, we want it.
He wanted it because it was a ring of power. And if you slipped that ring on your finger, you were invisible. Only in the full sunlight could you be seen, and only then your shadow, which would be faint and shaky.
My birthday present. It came to me on my birthday, my precious.
So he had always said to himself. But who knows how Gollum came by that present ages ago in the old days, when such rings were still at large in the world. Perhaps even the master who ruled them could not have said. Gollum used to wear it at first, till it tired him, and then he kept it in a pouch next to his skin, till it galled him, and now he usually hid it in a hole in the rock on his island, and he was always going back to look at it, and still sometimes he put it on, when he could not bear to be parted from it any longer, or when he was very, very hungry and tired of fish. Then he would creep along the dark passages looking for stray goblins. He might even venture into places where torches were lit and made his eyes blink and smart, for he would be safe. Oh yes, quite safe. No one would see him. No one would notice him till he had fingers around their throat. Only a few hours ago he had worn it, and he had caught a small goblin imp. How it had squeaked! He still had a bone or two left to gnaw, but he wanted something softer. "Quite safe, yes," he whispered to himself. "It won't see us, will it, my precious? No, it won't see us, and its nasty little sword will be useless, yes, quite." That is what was in his wicked little mind, as he slipped suddenly from Bilbo's side and flapped back into his boat and went off into the dark. Bilbo thought he had heard the last of him. Still he waited for a while, for he had no idea how to find his way out alone. Suddenly there came a screech. It was sent a shiver down his back. Gollum was cursing and wailing away in the gloom, not very far off by the sound of it. He was on his island, scrambling here and there, screeching and seeking in vain. "Where is it? Where is it?" Bilbo heard him crying. "Lost! It is my precious! Lost! Lost! Curse us and crush us! My precious is lost!" "What's the matter?" Bilbo cried. "What have you lost?"
"It mustn't ask us!" shrieked Gollum. "Not its business! No, Gollum! It's lost! Gollum! Gollum! Gollum!"
"Well, so am I," said Bilbo, "and I want to get unlost, and I won the game, and you promised, so come along. Come, let me out, and then go along with your looking." Utterly miserable as Gollum sounded, Bilbo could not find much pity in his heart, and he had a feeling that anything Gollum wanted so much could hardly be something good. "Come along!" he shouted.
"Not yet, precious," Gollum answered. "We must search for it. It's lost, Gollum."
"But you never guessed my last question, and you promised," said Bilbo.
"Never guessed?"
said Gollum. Then suddenly out of the gloom came a sharp hiss.
"What has it got in its pockets?" "Tell us that! It must tell us first!"
As far as Bilbo knew, there was no particular reason why he should not tell. Gollum's mind had jumped to a guess quicker than his, naturally, for Gollum had brooded for ages on this one thing, and he was always afraid of it being stolen. But Bilbo was annoyed by the delay. After all, he had won the game pretty fairly and at a horrible risk. "Answers were to be guessed, not given," he said.
"But it wasn't a fair question," said Gollum. "Not a riddle, precious, no."
"Oh, well, if it's a matter of ordinary questions," Bilbo replied, "then I asked one first. What have you lost? Tell me that."
"What has it got in its pockets?"
Then the sound came hissing louder and sharper as he looked towards it. To his alarm, Bilbo now saw two small points of light peering at him. As suspicions grew in Gollum's mind, the light of his eyes burned with a pale flame. "What have you lost?" Bilbo persisted. But now the light in Gollum's eyes had become a green flame, and it was coming swiftly nearer. Gollum was in his boat again, paddling wildly back to the dark shore, with such a rage of loss and suspicion was in his heart that no sword had any more terror for him. Bilbo could not guess what had maddened the wretched creature, but he saw that all was up, and that Gollum meant to murder him at any rate. Just in time, he turned and ran blindly back up the dark passage from which he had come, keeping close to the wall and feeling it with his left hand.
"What has it got in its pockets?" he heard the hiss loud behind him, and the splash as Gollum leapt from his boat. "What have I wonder?" he said to himself as he panted and stumbled along. He put his left hand in his pocket. The ring felt very cold as it quietly slipped onto his groping finger. The hiss was close behind. He turned now and saw Gollum's eyes like green lamps coming up the slope. Terrified, he tried to run faster, but suddenly struck his toes on a snag in the floor and fell flat with his little sword under him. In a moment, Gollum was on him. But before Bilbo could do anything, recover his breath, pick himself up, or wave his sword, Gollum passed by, taking no notice of him, cursing and whispering as he ran. What could it mean? Gollum could see in the dark. Bilbo could see the light of his pale eyes shining even from behind. Painfully he got up, sheathed his sword, which was now glowing faintly again, and then very cautiously he followed. There seemed to be nothing else to do. It was no good crawling back down to Gollum's water. Perhaps if he followed him, Gollum might lead him some way of escape without meaning to. "Curse it! Curse it! Curse it!" hissed Gollum. "Curse the Bagginses! It's gone! What has it got in its pockets? Oh, we guess, my precious. He found it, yes, we must have my birthday present." Bilbo picked up his ears. He was at last beginning to guess himself. He hurried a little, getting closer as he dared behind Gollum, who was still going quickly, not looking back, but turning his head from side to side, as Bilbo could see from the faint glimmer on the walls. "My birthday present! Curse it! How did we lose it, my precious? Yes, that's it. We came this way last, when we twisted that nasty young squeaker. That's it, curse it! It slipped from us after all these ages and ages. It's gone! Gollum!" Suddenly Gollum sat down and began to weep, a whistling and gurgling sound horrible to listen to. Bilbo halted and flattened himself against the tunnel wall. After a while, Gollum stopped weeping and began to talk. He seemed to be having an argument with himself. "It's no good going back in search, no. We doesn't remember all the places we visited, and it's no use. The Bagginsassity's got it in its pockets. The nasty noser has found it, we says. We guesses, precious, only guesses. We can't know till we find the nasty creature, and we squeezes it. But it doesn't know what the present can do, does it? It'll just keep it in its pockets. It doesn't know, and it can't go far. It's lost itself, this nasty nosy thing. It doesn't know the way out. It said so. It says so, yes, but it's tricksy. It doesn't know what it means. It won't say what it's got in its pockets. It knows. It knows a way in. It must know a way out, yes. It's off to the back door. To the back door, that's it. The goblins will catch it then. It can't get out that way, my precious goblins. Yes, but if it's got the present, our precious present, the goblins will get it, Gollum. Then they'll find it. They'll find out what it does, and we shan't be safe ever again, Gollum. What if the goblins will put it on and no one will see him? He'll be there but not be seen. Not even our clever eyes will notice him, and he'll come creepsy and tricksy and catch us, Gollum, Gollum. Then let's stop talking, precious, and make haste. If the Bagginses has gone that way, we must go quick and see. Go, not far now. Make haste. With a spring, Gollum got up and started shambling off at a great pace. Bilbo hurried after him, still cautiously, though his chief fear now was tripping on another snag and falling with a noise. He had heard. His head was in a whirl of hope and wonder. It seemed that the ring in his hand was a magic ring. It really made you invisible. He had heard of such things, of course, in old tales, but it was hard to believe that he had really found one by accident. Still, here it was. Gollum with his bright eyes had passed him, only a yard to one side. On they went,
Gollum flip-flapping ahead, hissing and cursing, Bilbo behind, going as softly as a hobbit can. Soon they came to places where, as Bilbo had noticed on the way down, side passages opened, this way and that. Gollum began to count them.
1 left, yes. 1 right, yes. 2 right, yes, yes. 2 left, yes, yes.
And so on, and so on. And here we will end for now. And if you want to see how Bilbo, if Bilbo gets out of the caves, we'll cover that in the next section. Thank you so much for watching Role Play Riot.